So essentially the email was suggesting, why am I making this so, now, I can only hope they make Judaism-centric, but they said Jew-centric, which is kind of, well, it's offensive to be honest. But that aside, because the religion we practice at the outset was in fact Judaism, and now it's not. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is not Jesus. One of them is Paul. And it's funny, because there really isn't a guy named Paul in the Bible. It's Saul. Because even when he fell off his horse and saw floating Jesus, Jesus said, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Why do you kick against the goat? Which is not a small thing, because what happens is we've created ourselves, as we sort of split from Judaism, this atmosphere that says, good Paul, because he's a Christian, bad Saul, because he's a Jew. Now, you hear that, and you say, well, nobody's saying that. Well, everybody's saying it. They just haven't heard it put like that before. But that's what it means to them. Just ask Martin Luther and John Calvin in his stupid red flower garden. Couldn't you have found a better flower to anachronize than a tulip? Which leads us into the next thing. The two things that I've taken a stand on now. Because remember, I'm still a church, I still go to church. I serve in church, and I would like to, do that for the remainder of my days. So I have to be careful when I say things, because it can shake people's faith. The first is this notion that Jesus is God. The second is this notion that we should be converting people, particularly Jewish people, to Christianity in order to speed the return of Jesus Christ, who doesn't seem to be in a hurry. In fact, he didn't seem to be in a hurry when he didn't know when he would return, which he told us several times, which means it's kind of a twofer right now. Two birds, one stone. It means, A, that he has a different proximity than God, his Father, and that he's going to sit not in the throne, but next to the throne on the right side, which is where a prince would sit, if there's no queen, to muddy things up. But this same thing it addresses conversion, which, Great Commission be damned, and I feel comfortable saying that because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. We made that word up. We made that whole phrase up, the Great Commission. If you don't know what something means, just put great in the front of it. And, we'll make a theology out of it. Or golden. Golden, which is interesting, because the golden rule is based on a different phraseology that Jesus put to a phrase taught to him by a man I think was his teacher, Hillel. And I say that because he sided with Hillel almost 90% of the time in the Bible. He sided with Shammai once with divorce. See, I'm saying all of this stuff, and my Christian friends it's like they're drowning in water. Their eyes are crossing. Which is why we make mistakes about the differences between Judaism and Christianity, which are vast. But not because Jesus wanted it that way, or even the Jerusalem Council wanted it that way, because they fought Paul. I'm not saying Paul's wrong. I'm saying he's a human, and that God allows humans to air their grievances and even make mistakes on the pages of things that we will eventually call Scripture. And then he preserves it, because he's completely sovereign. Now, Judaism's a lot better at this than we are. Another thing that puts people off is when I say that Judaism is the lore keeper of our faith. As if, lore keeping has, it's like some Dungeons and Dragons Cloak and Dagger RPG game. Or some story is being made up. It's not. It's a history and a story analogous with a people. And we come from the same people. And when we're not, we're, by our contract with Jesus, grafted in, which is not anything, which is something that Judaism knows about, but Christians who rely on this concept of being grafted in don't seem to know what it means. Anyway, all that, I don't want to get too deep into that. All this to say, if you're converting Jews to Christianity, you are luring people out of their contract with God. You're leading them to a breach of contract. Because his contract with them remains. Ours, I believe, was shed by his son, Jesus, and we entered in through that contract, which is, we keep saying we're converting Jews to save them, which is not a Jewish concept. Salvation from what? Ourselves? This earth? Redemption, that's something different. And I think both subscribe to that notion. But that's been done, following our narrative, on the cross. There's not a thing that can be added, and we in the West don't like this. We want to get our hands in there. You do not get a reward from converting Jews. You do not get, in fact, I hasten to think what you would get. And that's why I'm not going to play along with this. When Haggai gives money to Israel, everyone clamors. Christians think it's a wonderful thing. Here's a little bit of money. Love what you've done with the place. Thanks for keeping it up. But as soon as those eastern gates get kicked in, and Jesus comes to take us home, we're going to walk right over the backs of the Jewish people. That's what the money is saying when it comes from people like John Hagee. Even if they mean well, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk a lot more about Jesus' relationship with God, Son or not, God or not, later, because that deserves a lot of time, and it took me about a decade to unlearn and relearn what I now believe. So we'll go there next.